All right, let's focus on Illinois football now. I've broken this up into 7 kind of questions leading into a month that includes dozens of official visitors because June, Joey, has become the month for high school football prep recruiting, and it is an important time for these guys to kind of lock up their spots before the transfer portal. All those guys kind of take the spots. One interesting note here that I was talking with somebody about the other day, Joey, these schools don't know how many scholarships they will have for the 2025 year yet. Right? They do not know how big their rosters will be yet for the 2025 year. So it's a very interesting month because is it going to be 85 scholarships again with the changes with the House settlement? Is it going to be 100 roster spots that can all be scholarships? Is it going to be 120? We don't know. So that could really change how you build a roster here. But Illinois clearly probably going to try and add 15 to 20 high school kids. They got 6 commitments so far. But over the last several years, since they've allowed these June official visits, since the early signing period kind of moved things up, and more importantly, the transfer portal, high school recruits have more of an impetus to make an early decision. So that's why we've seen this become the big month for recruiting. And it's one where Illinois has done really well under Brett Bielema. They've organized these official visits really well, and they've cashed in. They get more guys than they seem to lose during this month.
Yeah, it's a huge month. And really from the get-go, dating back to when COVID let up and you could have, was that the 2022 class that came in, like their approach is very similar. Like they've adjusted some things that they've fine-tuned in terms of how they stack the weekends, but they have a huge weekend. A lot of it's in-state guys during that big weekend. You bring in a handful of commits. We'll get into that with what they're doing again this year. And then you start to maybe regionalize. You've seen Florida weekends come about or whatever, but this isn't just, wait a minute, your schedule's here. Like they've put a lot of thought into who's on campus with who, when. Like they're really intentional about all of that. You've seen that play out in their hit rate. And there is that one first big weekend, which we're coming up to, which is a huge weekend that we'll talk about, that seems to have a pretty good hit rate. That doesn't mean Illinois is going to bat 1,000 or really 700, but they're well over 500 in that first weekend. I think this weekend we'll see a similar approach there, but they've done a good job with it, Jeremy. And for Brett Bielema getting getting back into that coaching realm and an official visit, they hit the ground running. And Pat Embleton and his staff, and a lot of people deserve a lot of credit for this and success they've had. They've found a way to do it up and do it right.
Yeah, so Illinois hosting 12 official visitors this weekend. There could be one more that they eventually add to this, but 4 will be commitments. That's Carson Boyd, who is from O'Fallon, plays at Cardinal Ritter in St. Louis, the quarterback in this class. Michael McDonough, who plays at Andrew and Tinley Park, offensive lineman, 3-star. Andre Levette, 3-star DB, safety out of Eisenhower, Blue Island, and Griffin Rousseau, the 3-star offensive lineman out of Wisconsin. Those guys are big this weekend, Joey, and there's a reason they like to get a couple of commits or several commits on these because those guys are as good of recruiters as anybody. And I think that's important, especially when you're looking at Charles Bass out of East St. Louis with Carson Boyd there. I think that's a reason they have Carson Boyd here with Charles Bass, and then a guy like Cameron Brooks to get some Chicago kids like Andre Levette, Michael McDonough out of the suburbs. I think that helps build that rapport, and they always have these text threads. They're always chatting to each other, and we know Carson Boyd and Andre Levette were helping and kind of in the ear of Braden Trimble, who's going to take his official visit later this month, the wide receiver out of Mount Zion. So those guys can really, really impact the recruiting weekends here.
They can, and that's why they're here. I mean, obviously they get their own visit. You could have done that any time. You bring, especially Boyd and Levette. Those two seem like the JoJo Haydens, the Joey Oklas of past Brett Bielema classes, guys who are comfortable grabbing that spokesperson role of the class, that ace recruiter role of the class. Those two guys seem to be at the forefront of that. So to have them there to try to get, as you mentioned, some regional, you got a little Chicago flavor, you got a little Metro East flavor, to try to have those guys make their pitch is smart from Brett Bielema. We'll see if it pays out.
Yeah, then there's supposed to be 2 more next weekend. We'll see if there's any added. Carl Jenkins and Max Redman, 3-star prospects. Jenkins a wide receiver, Redman a defensive back. So a smaller weekend, and then another huge weekend. We got 8 guys scheduled to visit so far. A lot of Florida kids. As you've talked about, Joey, they always seem to have a Florida weekend, and that one will be it. Along with Derek Simmons, a defensive lineman, I'm sure we'll talk about. So just kind of an overview of what this month will look like. But again, dozens of guys visiting this weekend. So we figured we'd break this up. Like, we could break down every guy. I'm doing that with our official visit primers right now. So if you really want in depth on each guy, please go to our website, Illini Inquirer. We have 60% off VIP sale right now, a shameless plug. If you want each individual guy, what I think the odds are of the Illinois landing them, you can go there and check that out. But I figured the best way is kind of go over some different topics here, Joey. So I'll throw out number one right to you. How would you evaluate how the Illini have started the class of 2025 with the 6 commitments that they have?
Yeah, I don't know if we're looking for a letter grade or just a thought, but I really like the start of this, and I broke it down a little bit here. You go out and you get your quarterback. This is the second year in a row. They've been early and aggressive in their quarterback pursuit. Trey Petty and now Carson Boyd. He's a good quarterback, and that's a good get for Illinois to bring him in here, both, as we mentioned, as a recruiter, and he's talented on the field. You hit on 2 in-state litmus tests with Braden Trimble and with Andre Levette. Like, those are 2 guys. There's more we'll talk about here, Jeremy, as this podcast goes on. But to win those early, not let that get into the summer, I like that. And because it's Illinois, because it's Brett Bielema, because it's Bart Miller, you've laid a foundation on your offensive line. And like that, there's kind of like an outline. You can see how Illinois builds going into this recruiting month. Offensive linemen are a part of that. Obviously, Michael McDonough is the first commit of the class. And then, again, you get the quarterback at the litmus test. So I like where they start. I think they, I don't know that this, obviously there's 6 commits. So there's so far to go here with this recruiting class. But I think it's a good base. I think it's a good foundation to go in there and to really add some top prospects, some guys that you've prioritized in some cases for 8 months, in some cases, some really talented guys you've gotten in on over the course of the last 2 or 3 to see if you can wow them over. So I think the base that they have here, looking at who they have, is an encouraging sign going into June.
Yeah, I'm not going to build this up as like some, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. They're 52nd in the country, according to the rankings here, and they're bottom half of the Big Ten. So it's not like it's an unbelievable start. Like you have Marquez Beast and Isaiah Williams. That was an unbelievable start for them. After that, by the way, they didn't really gain any momentum, but I do think there's really good wins here. And I think it starts with that good in-state foundation that you brought up, Joey. Andre Levette's a big win. Like that is a strong safety out of Chicagoland that I think fits your scheme, fits that Sidney Brown, Matthew Bailey role incredibly well. And you beat Big Ten Power 4 teams for him. Braden Trimble, you had to land him. Like Central Illinois kid, the best in-state Central Illinois prospect. You had to get him at a position need at wide receiver, in a position that you have improved yourself at. Michael McDonough, the type of suburban lineman that Illinois struggled to land before Brett Bielema, you are landing 1 or 2 of those every year consistently now. That's a really good player, physical on the interior of the offensive line. And then Carson Boyd, in-state kid out of St. Louis, to get one of the better playmakers out of St. Louis at a quarterback position, like what you're building there with Trey Petty and Luke Altmaier, like you are landing high-level prospects there. So that's a really good in-state foundation. Griffin Rousseau, like he's a developmental prospect for me. He reminds me of Hunter Whitenack. Might take some time. We'll see how quick he is. Can he be a tackle? I still have to see if that can happen. But in Midwest offensive lineman fits what Bart Miller wants. And I think he's going to be a good program guy that can eventually be a starter. And then Zanai Scott, you're just going back to the Scott family. It worked for you. Why not get a similar prospect to Xavier, his brother? And obviously they like what he brings physically. And Rousseau and Scott both have other Power 5 offers. So I think those are solid additions that Phil needs. But I think this is a solid start that they can build upon. But Joey, I'll throw the next one to you. What would constitute a successful recruiting month to take this class to the next level?
I mean, it might not. There's some really. I think you've got to build your defensive front. That's what, to me, in terms of like, it's when we say next level, I don't mean jump up 8 spots in the Big Ten rankings, and maybe there'll be a byproduct of that depending on how this plays out. Not 8, but maybe you can move up there. I think if you look at what this team needs, what this roster needs long term, it's building up your defensive front, and that's defensive line, as we've talked about a lot, Jeremy, over the course of the last 2 years. And now the way this roster is shaken out over the course of the last 8 months, 12 months, dating back to the last class, is you've got to address that outside linebacker spot, because Josiah Knight, who you thought was in the fold, that fell through. You lose Calvin Smith to Purdue. Like those are 2 guys who you thought were going to be impact players long-term for you at the outside linebacker. So I still like where they are this year, of course, but you've got to get the next wave of guys. And you pair that with the defensive line, I think you get a couple really, really good players that you like up there. And they've got good players coming in, Jeremy. I think you pair that with the foundation you've got to, I think that could help take this to the next level, even if it doesn't drastically change the rankings.
Yeah, for me, it's win some big battles. Like
you're
in a really good Big Ten. You're in a deep Big Ten, and all these schools are mostly recruiting really, really well. You have to keep up, and you have to land your guys. You have to land your studs. And that's not always a fourth star for me. Like, I thought Vernon Woodward was a big addition. I thought Eddie Turk was a big addition. Andrew Dennis was as well. I thought Josiah Knight was kind of that caliber of a big win for them. But whether it's top 500 or a 4-star guy, they got a lot of really good players coming in this next month. Donovan Starr, a normal Bloomington native who moved to Tennessee, just earned a 4th star, incredibly fast, incredibly talented corner that ran a 10.56 100-meter dash. Translating, that's better than 4.45 speed, I would imagine. For a high school kid, that's unbelievable. And I think it's going to be hard to land him, but you're in on him. John Forster, a 4-star running back. Illinois has gotten a 4-star running back each of the last 2 years, according to the composite rankings with Caden Fagan and Khalil Valentine. If you add Forster, too, on top of that, who reminds me of Josh Ferguson, all of a sudden you are adding real talent at that playmaker position. Charles Bass, 4-star composite DB, could probably play strong safety or nickel. That Quan Martin or Sidney Brown role, like, be a huge addition in state. And then some outside linebackers. I'm going to dive into this a little bit later, Joey, but Jesse Harold's a top 100 prospect. Donovan Darden is the highest 3-star basically rating that you can get that's visiting on North Carolina. They got a couple other outside linebackers visiting. Tyrone Burris, high 3-star, some freak athletes. Like, get a couple of these guys. If you can lock up a few of those guys, those are your headliners, but most importantly, that's the type of talent you need to consistently win in the Big Ten. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a few headliners to see if they can add those guys. I think they're going to put together good players, get good players, address their positions of need, but can you land those top-tier playmakers? That'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that was my second one, and for all the reasons you mentioned. We've seen Illinois. They've gotten into some good recruiting battles, and they've won some. Like, so keep that up. Like, now you're seeing it kind of up a little bit as people love the star. Obviously, stars matter, like they do, and you're starting to see that 4-star, fringe 4-star come across, just as you mentioned. So win more of those. Continue to stack the talent, because the Big Ten is getting better. The West is gone. You need to stack talent.
You feel that, guys? Warmer, sunnier days are calling. And fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart and Keto, or my favorite, Protein Plus. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine with Factor. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore, so you can crush your wellness goals this May with dietitian approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. So treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. And the best part, you keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. So enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. So head to factormeals.com/Illini50 and use code Illini50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% of your next month. That's code Illini50 at factormeals.com/Illini50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. All right. Biggest position of need in the class of 2025. I will lead this off because I think there's 2 clear ones. I think you mentioned one of them. Mm-hmm. The defensive line remains that for me. You don't have a defensive line commit yet in the class. You lose 4 seniors. Not that these freshmen are going to come in and play. Like the guys like Angelo McComb, the guys who are freshmen now, like those guys will probably play next year, and you're still probably going to add some transfers. But T.Y. Edwards, General Hunt, Zeke Combs, Dennis Briggs, all gone. and you have to continue elevating talent there, Joey. You have to make the most of the Johnny Newton sell while you have it. And then I like what they have coming in. They have 5, no doubt, Power 5 defensive line prospects coming in this month. This week, it's Isaiah White out of Indianapolis, Cam Brooks out of Homewood Flossmoor, and then 3 kids on the last weekend, Derek Simmons out of Michigan, Jaquan Stubbs out of Ohio, Dante Simpson out of Florida. I like those guys. Land 3 of those guys, I feel good. After what you added last year on the defensive line, Terrence Jameson has developed really well. I think gradually they have increased what they have been able to add talent-wise there, including last year's class, which I liked. Stack another one of those because you need as many defensive linemen. When you think you have enough defensive linemen, you don't. You got to keep stacking.
Yeah, I'm with you. That was my number 1, was defensive line. As I was talking about the last point, I realized I'd stole my thunder on that anyway. So, I mean, I just pivot and say defensive back because you've still got to sell. You've still got the Aaron Henry sell. Corey Parker's got to sell. I'm curious to see what he can do here, Jeremy, on the recruiting trail and once these visits start. But you've got a good foundation already, as we mentioned, Andre Levette, Zanny Scott. But then you mentioned there are some big names still out there. Charles Bassett's in that conversation. Donovan Starr is in that conversation. You've got guys this weekend, especially, that can take what we like what they've got so far and stack some more talent on top of that. And that's, I mean, come on, that was a question mark last season, and you will need to keep stacking talent there. And they do have young, intriguing talent, but man, I think there's a chance with some of the guys they have coming in here that you can say, man, that was a good defensive back haul.
All right. Which Illini recruiter intrigues you the most this month? I'm going to lead off here, Joey.
We're going to double up, but then go ahead. I've got it. I knew we were going to, so I've got a second.
All right. Should we say it at the same time? See if we're actually right here?
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2,
3, 2, 1. Do we do go? I'm just kidding. All right.
Yes, I would do go. 3, 2, 1, go. Clint Sinham. Yeah. No, it is him because he got here late, Joey. And after you lose Josiah Knight, who I was high on, Calvin Smith, who I think was going to play this year, like rotational role, and a guy that had great length, great speed, just need to continue adding strength. He's now
especially after Holmes moved to the defensive line, like that really opened the door for him.
Right. Those were 2 talents I really liked long term. Seth Coleman's gone after this year. Gabe Ackus, not going to be here for a long time, right? Like Alec Bryant's got 2 more years. Daniel Brown's got 2 more years. You have no sophomores right now at that position and 2 freshmen, and that's it. So they need to load up on some talent here. And I was getting worried when you add a guy late. He got here right in March, Clint did, and you're kind of behind the 8 ball here. But then I look at the prospects they have here. Tyrone Burris Jr. is a top 4 or top 5 of Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisville, Michigan State. Donovan Darden has been one of the biggest risers at his position in the country. Pittsburgh, South Carolina, NC State in the mix. Jesse Harold, I mentioned, top 100 prospect. He's visiting after Illinois this week. LSU, Texas A&M, UCF. Then Nicholas Clayton's out of Florida, visiting Nebraska, Florida State, UCF. You turn on the film of these guys, especially Burris, Darden, and Harold. These guys are freaks. They're freak athletes. They remind me of Seth Coleman. And while they have some big, strong guys, and Ackus and Joe Barna, who they're really high on, and Mason Moragan, they need some freak. So these are usually the best athletes on the field. And with Coleman and Ackus having success, potentially more success this year, this is a position that I think they can sell really well. Plus, Clint Sinham's been there, man. He was a college start at Virginia at this position, top 50 NFL draft pick. What can he do? Can he actually get 1 or 2 of these guys? That'd be huge because it's such a position to need.
Yeah, he was my obviously number 1. I have Corey Parker written down, but I think I touched on him a second ago. So, I mean, that still stands. So I'm just going to pivot because I don't want to repeat what we've already said. I think Parker is a good one. I'm not pivoting because I think I'm off on that because I am fascinated with how he and Aaron Henry can merge the Devin Witherspoon and the Quinyon Mitchell cell together. Like that's a huge storyline for me going into this. But at the risk of, I'm going to say Justin Stepp.
Yeah.
I think he's good. I think he's really, really good at this. And to go and get Braden Trimble early, I didn't know, and I still don't, it's not really clear to me how many more wide receivers. Definitely 1 more because more are visiting. But how many are they going to take versus maybe getting into the portal if that's the case next offseason? but he's got some talent coming in here, and he's done a good job. Guy like Davion Chandler, Jeremy, I know you talked to him earlier this week. That's a later addition here. They just had Terry Shelton on campus. Let's see if he can close one of those guys down. Those guys are Power 5 guys who have – Shelton has a good offer. Like, they have offer lists that even if they're late, like, can he make up that ground quickly on those guys and get one more in the fold along with Braden Trimble? So I think there's 3 obvious ones. Symptom's number 1, and then Parker and Stepp are 2 and 3, unless you've got a fourth. I feel like those are the big 3.
No, Sinham's a really interesting one. The other thing I like about Sinham is he's got Brett Bielema behind him too. Brett Bielema was an outside linebackers coach in the NFL. He's had a history of developing edge rushers as well. He can always pull out that J.J. Watt card whenever he wants. So
does he do that on film?
Just every once in a while. I don't know how he hasn't gotten him as assistant coach yet, though, Joey. What's he doing? So, yeah, I'm really interested in that. And Archie McDaniel is just kind of laying in the weeds. Like, the linebacker targets have been really quiet. They haven't been really – it's not a huge need, but I'm just really interested to see what they do at that position. All right, let's go to number 5. How important are the 2 in-state visitors this weekend? Charles Bass, DB, East St. Louis, Cameron Brooks, defensive lineman out of Homewood Flossmoor.
They're huge. They're huge. And Bass, obviously, is a composite 4-star. Brooks isn't that. But when you've been in on guys, as long as they've been in on these 2 guys, when you've had them to campus like you've had them to campus, when you feel like Illinois is in the top 2, if not 1, on someone especially like Brooks, you got to close that deal. You've got to get these, especially Brooks, the defensive linemen in the state. They've missed on some because there's some massive, massive powerhouse programs going after them. It's just the reality of the fact. Brooks is attainable. You've done a great job. You have done a great job up until this point. Close the deal, get it through the finish line, add him to your recruiting class. Bass, you feel like you've got a good sell. You've got East St. Louis guys. You've made headway back into that program that Illinois had struggled before Brett Bielema to really find its footing in East St. Louis. Now you have that opportunity to add a really talented player, another one, in addition to the ones you've already added in previous classes. Brandon Henderson, JoJo Hayden, Melvin Priestley went there. You got him via transfer. Get those guys.
Yep.
Get those guys, shut this thing down, and move forward. And I just think you could send a message more than anything like, hey, we can close on these guys. We can still be competitive for top, guys like this in the state of Illinois. It's a great opportunity for them.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the on the YouTube channel here, Joey, just because it's really interesting, the in-state thing, because this is a loaded in-state class, and Illinois has not landed any of the top 17 guys so far. But look who has landed them. Northwestern got Caden O'Rourke. Illinois was probably 2nd or 3rd in that recruitment. Burke Goucher went to Iowa. He's number 10. Jason Dow went to Missouri. He's number 12. But the top 9 guys, basically, Yosei Epinesa is going to go to some school that has a bunch of NIL, probably SEC or top tier Big Ten. Nathaniel Marshall picked Michigan. Taylor just visited Georgia, and he's got all these power offers. Dare Hill out of Althoff, Oregon. Jalen Williams has a crystal ball to Michigan. Christopher Burgess goes to Notre Dame. Dominic Hulak goes to Notre Dame. Joseph Reif goes to Notre Dame. It's just the reality is really hard to win those guys when you're in those battles with where Illinois is as a program right now. But if that next tier is where Illinois is really feasted, and I don't think that's such a terrible thing because they weren't feasting there for a really long time. Andre Levette's 18. Braden Trimble's 19. Michael McDonough is 20. Cameron Brooks is 24. And then Charles Bass is number 13. Again, Cameron Boyd's an in-state kid out of O'Fallon. So if you're landing 6 of the top 24, plus, Boyd would be in there if he was in state, it's a good in-state class. Not great, maybe. It could be great, but that would be a really good end to this class. If you win Charles Bass over, all these SEC teams, including Arkansas, where he visited, Missouri's kind of in the mix. But if it's Arkansas-Illinois battle, I think Illinois should win that, given their DB cell, given their closest to home, the East St. Louis kids they have on their roster, and just where they are.
Bielema's grip on his job
compared to Arkansas, right?
Right, yeah.
Cam Brooks, Kansas, has done an unbelievable job recruiting him. Done a great job. They offer the same day as Illinois. They've gotten him on campus. You're 2 hours from home. You need to win that one. And I think they should. I think they will. I kind of had Illinois as the leader. I put in a crystal ball a while ago, but that's just one you got to win. So if you win those two, I think it's a good in-state recruiting class.
Yeah, it is. And look, someone's going to listen to this and say, why are we just assuming we're not going to get the top 10? Because it's a process to get up there. And it just is to win those top 10 guys when your top 10 are the programs you just mentioned. So no one's giving them a pass forever. Like, don't worry about winning top 10 in-state battles. Absolutely not. You want to win those. But you've also got to feast.
We're more realistic about where they are as a program. And for me, the process hasn't been flawed. Like, that's what it comes down to for me. Are you recruiting these guys? Yes. Are you recruiting them hard? Yes. Are you getting them on campus? Yes. You're not beating Michigan for most guys that Michigan wants. You're not beating Notre Dame for most guys that Notre Dame wants. Now you want to start winning more against Northwestern and Iowa and that group. And they have, but like, you're not going to win them all still because those programs have just been better than you for so long.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why I thought even when Brett Bielema got hired, like that 15 to 25 range, they've got to dominate that. And then as you build that, presumably that gives you a foundation to put yourself in a position to get into that 1 to 10 range. And it changes every class, right? Like as Brett Bielema and his staff are here longer, you'll build relationships with some of these guys who are going to find, like, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but you've got to crawl before you can walk, right? Is that what it is? And for where this in-state recruiting was, and I don't want to continue to measure everything against in-state recruiting under Lovie Smith, but you're seeing Brett Bielema being so much more, and his coaching staff being so much more aggressive in-state. You're seeing that pay off more, and you just slowly build up, and you've got to slowly get yourself. You got to win football games. You got to win freaking games to make yourself more appealing to some of that top 10 talent that is choosing between, if it's Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, come on, like, you've got to put yourself in a spot that you can be appealing on the field too. And Illinois, I believe Illinois is doing that, even if it's not happening at the breakneck speed that everyone wants it to happen.
Listen, besides win a couple more games, I don't know what more they could have done for Nathaniel Marshall, Christopher Burris Jr. And listen, I don't know what the NIL is for some of these top guys. Like, top high school kids are going to make a lot. And for Illinois right now, I don't know if that's worth the investment. I'd rather keep some of my top tier talent on campus that's currently on the roster. I'd rather go get a Terrence Brooks or Zachary Franklin, who they're still going after. Like, I think those guys are a better investment for Illinois as a program with where they're at right now with their NIL. But like, they recruited these guys really well. It's just Michigan and Notre Dame are a different level. All right, who'd be the best possible get or biggest possible get this month, Joey? Who do you have listed there?
I changed this literally earlier. I was watching the Huddle film. In fact, I tried to guess. So some of yours. Oh, we have one more that I was really excited to guess. And I was going to text anyway. Donovan Starr. It's Donovan Starr. Like, I watched the tape and I was like, this dude is, as you mentioned, so fast. He is so fast. He's physical too. He is physical. He's from Bloomington Normal. You can keep that defensive back cell. You can stack what would be a really good defensive backs class. Like, I know who you're going to go with. It's my other one right on there, Jeremy. But man, his tape is so appealing and so fun to watch. And I think to get a splash like that over he's visiting Clemson, he's visiting Auburn, he's visiting these are power programs. It is not going to be easy. And I don't even know that Illinois is going to do it, right? Like, I'm not trying to set the expectation that they are, but that would be a huge win.
Be a heck of a story. And yeah, he ran that 10.56 100-meter dash. It translates on the football field. Like, his ability to gain ground quickly, like, acceleration is insane. Like, he ran.
One of his highlights is him as a receiver running like an end around, and he gets to the outside, and he's at probably the 45, and his offensive lineman is at the 45 on the other side of the field, and he's already got his hands up like, oh, man, I'm glad we got a touchdown on this. He had 45 more yards to go, and it wasn't a clear path. Like, that is how fast this kid is. You just assume he's going to win. But, like, that is such a fun film to watch. It's not Easton Baker lighting people up for 13 straight minutes, but that is a super fun film.
I didn't know where to go here, to be honest with you. So what did you think I was going to pick?
I mean, there's a top 100 kid on campus coming to campus. So Jesse Hurl, I mean, that is a natural one.
Yeah. And I will add, this is based on who we know is coming to campus, who is confirmed coming to campus. Dramatic pause. There could be others. Okay. John Forster would be great. I don't feel like it's the biggest need because you got Khalil Valentine, but adding a guy like that would be huge. I do want to mention Darren Streese still sitting out there. Left tackle prospect out of Michigan. Illinois was one of his first officials. He goes to Northwestern. He's got a bunch of official visits this month, including Stanford, some others. High academic kid. I still think Illinois has a chance to get him. So I don't want to not mention him. I think they're a very big underdog for Malachi Goodman, who's a top 247 offensive lineman that took an official in April. I consider Charles Bask as the in-state kid, DB, good sell. I'm going to go with LaJesse Harold, or I think Donovan Darden is a high-level edge rusher prospect. So either of those two, like Darden would not be as big because he's not a four-star prospect. He's really rose on the 24/7 sports rankings. Composite's kind of lagging behind that. But I turn on the film, I see a lot of Seth Coleman. So that really excites me because Seth Coleman turned into a four-star prospect for 24/7 sports late in the process. I just think one of those two guys, if you can land that kind of caliber of edge rusher, Tyrone Burris is right in there with them. I think that would be huge, but Harold would definitely be the biggest headliner because of where he ranks, and certainly is another freak athlete. But they need a guy like that. They need a freak athlete on that defensive front.
Yeah, it'd be a huge win for Clemson. Like that is him like, hey, all right, like I'm here. Like that'd be a big splash.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap this up. A 3-star visitor fans shouldn't overlook because I don't feel like all 3 stars are created equal. I think we have too many 3 stars, not enough 4 stars, and we should have more 2 stars. But that's a conversation I've had many, many times. So it feels like just another 3-star. I hear that all the time. So who's one that gets you excited, Joey?
I need you to start this because I had like 5 different texts lined up. Like, is it him? Is it him? And I guessed 2, and I was wrong. So I need you to start this. Can I guess yours?
You take your guys because I kind of based mine off of not taking your guy.
Well, okay. I like Derek Simmons. I think his tape is super fun. He's big. He's fast. He's quick, rather, like that. At that position of need, I just think that'd be a big win. And you're seeing that play out with some of the visits he's got lined up. I know our guy Alan True caught up with him and has his visit list. I believe Michigan State is included, Jeremy, on that list. Simmons is later this month. But for what Illinois needs on the defensive line, for as talented as I think he is, don't overlook that. Honorable mention. Can I give an honorable mention before you go?
Can I give something on Derek Simmons?
Yes.
He got offered, and Alan told me, I can't believe it took this long for a Big Ten school to offer. They were the first Big Ten school. He's out of Frankenmuth. I could be saying that wrong, but what a town name in Michigan.
North of Detroit.
Yeah. Big guy, moves quickly, and plays physical. I'll give you that. He kind of reminds me, if you want to go Illinois, like the way Kendrick Green moved at his size, though he's bigger and probably not as quick as Kendrick, but kind of reminds me of Braden Fisk, a Michigan guy. He's from Michigan. Kind of reminds me of that, and just how quickly he moves at his size. I think there's a lot there. He can play offensive line. Like, I like his offensive line tape. He's just killing people out there. So
he pulls, and you can see his speed and quickness when he pulls on the offensive line.
Yeah. So like, I'm a big fan of him. Like, he's one of my favorite defensive linemen visiting this weekend. Give me your honorable mention.
Can I go Jershawn Newton?
We had to get a Jershawn Newton mention.
I know we did. And look, he's obviously, I don't need to tell you the family lineage to Illinois. Johnny Newton was very, very good. I think Illinois has done a good job here. The hurdle with him, I think a lot of people, when you think of him, and because he plays quarterback, he's a talented one in high school, and he wants to play quarterback. I mean, he does. And I don't know if that's going to be the reality for him, but it's his preference to do that if at all possible. Isaiah Williams wanted to play quarterback too, and turned out okay for him. But Illinois sees him as, I believe, as a linebacker, maybe a defensive back. Kind of reminds me a little bit of how I think of Malachi Hood, a linebacker who can drop back and cover like that, and with that speed that Jershawn has. I think Illinois is in a good spot for him. I really do, as long as you can kind of let him come to terms with not being a quarterback. And I say that because Carson Boyd's in the class. And you're not taking 2 quarterbacks in the same class, obviously. We had to bring him up. We have to, because he's a talented player. And his brother was really good at Illinois, and he's known this coaching staff for a long time because they did a great job getting his brother to the NFL.
He's a good athlete, great lineage. Not only Johnny Newton, but like all of his other brothers. Juwan's a heck of a player at Toledo. A lot of these guys have played at a high level with college football. So yeah, I just don't know how it translates to linebacker, defensive back, because I don't have any really film of him doing that. So we'll see. But who did you think I was taking for this?
Well, I guessed 2 earlier, and I was wrong. I think a guy that you might mention is Isaiah White.
Like him, I think he's a nose tackle. I was not gonna mention him here. I think he's a really good player, really good prospect. Nose tackle guy, I think. Kind of a guy. Kind of reminds me of Denzel Daxon with his size. He's got to add a little bit more to be Denzel Daxon size, but he just kind of reminds me of that with his strength.
No, I'm not going to sit here and keep guessing. The suspense is really.
I like this game. Jaquan Stubbs, the guy I had honorable mention. He's 6'5", 260. Really raw because he's been playing basketball most of his life. Familiar story, Keith Randolph. But he kind of reminds me of Jihad Ward just because of how big this dude is, how athletic he is. He's just got to kind of play more football and learn more football. So kid out of Ohio, visiting several Big Ten schools. He's visiting Illinois later this month. Davion Chandler is my guy.
I should have guessed it.
Don't overlook the Indiana wide receiver. Illinois has kind of been working Indianapolis in this, and it's been really hard for Illinois to land kids out of Indiana. It's just so recruited. I mean, Notre Dame, Indiana, Purdue, Ohio State, Michigan, they're all recruiting there. It's so centrally located. But you turn on the film of this kid, and he's not huge. He's like 5'11 and a half, 6 foot, 170 pounds. Acceleration, man. His ability to get separation, his ability to make plays after the catch, but like he can stop and start so quickly. I don't want to put huge expectations on this kid, but like he kind of reminds me a little bit of that AJ Jenkins acceleration for Illinois fans. It's like, get this guy slant over the middle. He can turn it in. He can get over the top of the defense. And it's something that Illinois has lacked at that position, right? Like they just haven't had a guy who just kind of stretches the field. Think of like Will Fuller at Notre Dame and in the NFL with the Texans. Like, guys like that, they can just get over the top, stretch the field, catch the ball, make a play after the catch. They could really use some of that speed. And Justin Stepp has prioritized him, worked that one really, really hard just to get Illinois in the mix. Like Indiana and Wisconsin kind of been the top 2 schools, but Illinois is hosting them this weekend. So we'll see if they can make a big pitch. I mean, obviously with Isaiah Williams and Casey Washington's success, they got a pitch, and Justin has a pretty good history of wide receivers, making the NFL, including Xavier Legette this past year.
Yeah, I've been impressed with him so far. I'm really interested to see. There's a lot of new coaches, Jeremy, to learn or kind of see how they fared during this insane month of June and all these official visits. There's one pressing question that you did not have on our, right. I guess it was a 7-pack. What is the activity this month on campus? We've seen a kind of different levels. We've seen different iterations of them. I'm going to guess paintball. Is that
You mentioned it. They haven't changed things up that much with their approach because it has worked for them. Paintball is an activity I think even if you haven't done it before, you're going to get into, right? Like
you get 2 things out of it. Like if you're a coach, you can see the competitive nature of these dudes really, really shine. And not that you need that much more. Like they are moving around.
See the way that guy barrel rolled behind the barrier there? That's some elite athleticism. I just think most of all, it's a fun activity. It gets you kind of riled up, right? Gets the heart pumping a little bit too. So I think the interaction with the guys on campus, the players get to have fun doing it all the time. So those guys are huge in this weekend as well. Like the official visit hosts are big here. The players, the culture, that family aspect you hear about, it is really big during these official visit weekends, and the staff's ability to kind of connect with the families is really important. And Brett Bielema and his staff and the recruiting staff, all those, which has grown. They've added a couple people here this past week. I think has been really good. So it's always good to see them get people on campus. I do think they do that really, really well. And we hear the same thing from every visitor. It's like they say, we know it's cheesy, but the family aspect of it is true. Like they do a really good job of connecting on a personal level. So if they can combine that with a football sell, with an NFL draft sell, with getting better in the Big Ten, maybe it can be a good month, Joe. I think they're going to add a lot here. They're going to add finish their needs. Like a lot of the guys we talked about, they're going to land several of these guys. But if they can land several of them and maybe get a surprise or two, that'd be a nice month.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to think back to like some surprises in the last couple of years. The one that really was like Jamarion Harkless. Now that didn't hold, right? That didn't hold for very
Rico
long.
Jackson didn't hold.
Rico Jackson, but those were like, oh, I didn't really think that was in the conversation, and they ended up getting them. So there's going to be a surprise. I don't know who it's going to be, and I think it'd be reckless a little bit to guess right now. There's a surprise or two every single year, and we'll see who it is this year.
I think Easton Baker might have been one of those last year, right? Because Oklahoma was in the mix, and it was just like Illinois just
they stopped him from that. He committed prior to his Oklahoma visit. I remember took a picture. Did Brett Bielema have? He had some sort of trophy in their closing meeting. I remember Easton Baker like tweeted a picture of the trophy. That's a good call. I forgot about kind of how that all, because he's previously committed to BYU. Yeah.
He committed. They flipped him. Obviously that one didn't last, but he made an impact as a freshman. Calvin Smith, I know that one didn't last, but the veterinarian school really helped them close that one down. So yeah, we'll see what happens. There's always a surprise or two, man, along the way. And I'll just say, like, the talent level they got coming the next couple of weeks, especially that outside linebacker position, is really intriguing. So anything else?
Just one little, I guess, reminder. People are not itching to text reporters during official visits like, hey, great. Like, it's pretty quiet until everyone gets out of there on Sunday. So we are curious too on Saturday night when everyone's like, or maybe it's Friday night, the Instagram live photo shoots.
Yeah. Can I get this out of the way? How's the official visit going? It's going great.
Yes. Yeah.
Just gonna guess. They're getting food. They're hanging out with people. They're going out with players. All that stuff. Like they're getting loved up by all these coaches. Like I bet it's going great. So most of these go pretty well. They will announce if they got a decision. We will catch up with them as they're going home. And some of them don't like to talk. Some of them do like to talk. We don't try to bother them ridiculously, but we'll have that all at Illini Inquirer. So. Yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend for us, Joey, but these are always exciting as Illinois tries to build its future.
They are exciting, and now we continue our quest of messaging, hey, are you available to catch up on Sunday? That is how the middle to back end of our week goes, trying to get a hold of kids. But it's fun, man. This is a really exciting time of the calendar year.
Yeah, and Illinois still waiting a word on Zachary Franklin. We'll see where that goes. If we have anything new on that, we'll have that at Illini Inquirer as well. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. If you're on our live YouTube channel, we appreciate that. Hit the like button, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell as well. If you're listening on the podcast, give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcast. And again, 60% off VIP membership to Illini Inquirer right now. It's a good month to do so. You can read Derek's write-up on Will Riley. It was fantastic. You can see that breakdown at Illini Inquirer as well. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.